Hello, and welcome to the Victorian Standard Chart of Accounts for Non-Profit Organisations, presented on behalf of the Office for the Community Sector. My name is Eddie McFall, and I'm a Client Manager from Matrix On Board, a consultancy company that works exclusively with non-profit organisations, building capacity in financial management, governance and management support. I'm personally a Chartered Management Accountant, and my background is in finance and accounting, both in the non-profit and commercial sectors. And at Matrix, I specialise in working with non-profit organisations, helping to build their financial capacity. I'd like to welcome you to these training programmes, which will explain the purpose, benefits and practical application of the Victorian Standard Chart of Accounts. Accompanying these training programmes is a participant manual, which you can download from this site. This is the first of 4 training programmes, each covering a specific aspect of the Standard Chart of Accounts. In this particular programme, I will outline the background to the project, what a Chart of Account is, what the Standard Chart of Account is and the reasons why it's been implemented, and the benefits of adopting it. In Programme 2, I'll introduce the Standard Chart of Accounts in more detail, outlining the key features of how it's structured, as well as practical aspects of dealing with the Standard Chart of Accounts in conjunction with cost centres. Programme 3 is a practical session covering the first stage of implementation and converting your accounting software to the Standard Chart of Accounts. In the 4th and final programme, we'll cover the second stage of converting your accounting software and verifying to ensure the progress has been a success. This first programme will be specifically of interest to board members and CEOs, whereas Programmes 2, 3 and 4 are more practical and applicable to finance staff and treasurers as they cover the specifics of implementation. To answer questions about the Standard Chart of Accounts and to provide advice and resources, there's a telephone help desk, email support and further information which can all be accessed from this site. Okay, so how did we arrive at this point? The Victorian Standard Chart of Accounts is an initiative of the Office for the Community Sector in the Department of Planning and Community Development. The department was established in August 2007 to lead and support the development of livable communities. It puts the needs of these growing communities front and centre. The Victorian Government recognises the significant contribution that not-for-profit organisations make to life in Victoria through a diverse range of activities from community services and social welfare to education, sport and recreational services. In order to better support Victoria's vital community organisations, the Government has established the Office for the Community Sector to work to implement the Victorian Government's Action Plan Strengthening Community Organisations. This is a plan to ensure the long-term stability of the non-profit sector. The purpose of the action plan is to reduce the burden experienced by these organisations and making their interactions with government more streamlined through initiatives such as the development of the Victorian Standard Chart of Accounts. The actual Standard Chart of Accounts was developed by the Australian Centre for Philanthropy and Non-Profit Studies at Queensland's University of Technology, and through extensive consultation with the Victorian non-profit sector, government and other interested parties. Coordinated by the Office for the Community Sector, the Victorian Government will adopt the Standard Chart of Accounts from the 1st of July 2010, and it will be mandatory for state government departments and agencies from that date. However, implementation is voluntary for non-profit organisations who can still choose to use their existing Chart of Accounts. Okay, so what is a Chart of Accounts? A Chart of Accounts is a means of classifying financial information in a logical and meaningful order. At its highest level, a Chart of Accounts will group financial information into assets, liabilities, income, expense, equity and cost of sales. Victorian Government departments, grant funders and non-profit organisations will all use a Chart of Accounts. However, each organisation is most likely using a Chart of Accounts which is unique to them. Therefore, trying to compare and understand financial information from different government departments, grant funders and non-profit organisations can be a time-consuming and costly exercise for all those involved. So that's a chart of accounts. What is the Victorian Standard Chart of Accounts and why is it needed? The Standard Chart of Accounts is a convention of agreed terms used to classify financial transactions to ensure like transactions are grouped with like. It provides a common approach to capturing financial information by non-profit organisations, enabling government departments and other grant makers to talk the same accounting language as non-profit organisations and their advisors. Research by the Australian Centre for Philanthropy and Non-Profit Studies has found that the lack of consistency in accounting categories has caused significant compliance costs to non-profit organisations, government departments and grant makers. An inability to aggregate and compare financial data for public policy and benchmarking, and unlike most OECD countries, including the US, the UK and Canada, Australia doesn't have not-for-profit sector accounting standards. So what are the advantages of the Victorian Standard Chart of Accounts? Well, there are many advantages, but some of the key benefits are the application of best practice financial management across funded non-profit organisations. It will provide for consistent exchange of information with funders in respect of budgets, acquittal reporting and financial capability. It will create transparent reporting for improved decision making in organisations. It will reduce the compliance costs for government departments, grant makers and non-profit organisations, and it will also guide volunteer treasurers and bookkeepers on the best methods of recording financial transactions to meet the latest requirements and accounting standards. So that brings us to the end of this first training programme. I trust you have a general understanding of the Victorian Standard Chart of Accounts, its importance for the Victorian not-for-profit sector, and can recognise its value for your organisation. In the next programme, I'll introduce the Standard Chart of Accounts in more detail, outlining the key features of how it's structured, as well as practical aspects of dealing with the Standard Chart of Accounts in conjunction with cost centres. I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.